Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
We as a Carolina community and as a nation continue to struggle with intergovernmental relations as well as acute credibility challenges with our elected representatives. Civility, reasonable debate, cooperation seem now more an exception than the rule when it comes to advanced policy and beneficial lawmaking. Welcome back, and thanks so much for supporting the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy for more than 2 decades now. I'm Chris William, and this time it is our pleasure to not just discuss the region's most critical issues, but highlight a senior politico who has led for decades and in fact crossed the partisan barrier to get things done. Later on this program, the emblematic Charleston mayor, the Honorable Joe Riley, joins us.
Major funding also by NOVANT Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded November 8th, 2013. On this week's program, Dr. Bob Oldendick of the University of South Carolina, Chris Platte of Monroe-Union County Economic Development, and special guest Mayor Joe Riley of the City of Charleston. And now, here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Bob, Chris, good to have you both back. Thank you for joining us. Chris, I'm going to start with you. You know, Secretary of Commerce, North Carolina Commerce, Sharon Decker was on this program about 3 months ago talking about this new idea for commerce, for the division, the Department of Commerce, that both Governor McCrory and Secretary Decker have. And it's Partnership for Prosperity, but it's really changing the DNA of commercial and economic development for North Carolina. And it's rebranding the state, which the governor's talked about doing for a while now. But give us a sense of what this does for the state. And let me just cite this one example, and I know you're probably painfully aware of this, but Site Selection Magazine said that North Carolina's stock is dropping and South Carolina's stock is going up to some degree. So as the state goes through this pretty major rebranding, what does it do for economic development right now, here?
I think it's a challenge. I mean, it's a lot of political courage to go out and try to go to privatization of a department like that. You know, we just went through a very small version of that with combining a city and a county economic development agency, and it was just monumental. I can't imagine what they're going through with the state in trying to do that. It's taken a little bit longer than I think everybody wanted.
You mean for you, or is this on the state level?
For the state level, to get their to get everything in place. But again, I think it's just such a massive effort that they're trying to do. Because of that, there is some uncertainty out there that the companies are faced with. That's one thing they don't like. So until those are resolved, but I think it's just growing pains. Something that we've got to face.
So is this short-term pain going to end up being very beneficial long-term for North Carolina? Is that your sense?
I hope so. I think so too. If you look at some of the other public-private groups that are out there, they've been very successful and are able to be more flexible and move with the market. As it changes, every decade, there's a new wave of things that are coming and going, and the way manufacturing is. So I think that public-private does give us that flexibility.
You know, I will tell you this, that off the record, a lot of South Carolina developers are saying, this is great. North Carolina's kind of on the sidelines, and it gives us a chance to really get some traction and ground. So I know you probably know that as well. So good luck to you. Bob, let's get into the conversation here. At the top of the program, we talked a little bit about intergovernmental relations and what's and what's happening not just since post the Great Recession in 2008, but also what's going on, and especially given the congressional follies that happened just last month around the debt ceiling, about shutting down the government. We've seen poll after poll. Latest was out of Winthrop University saying that people are just disappointed and disgusted with congressional representation. How long-lasting is this, do you think?
Well, I think that it's going to last certainly into the next election cycle, and as we see coming in January, there's going to be another battle. The question is it going to make a difference in terms of electoral politics? And if we look on the horizon at both the state level, in terms of the General Assembly, everybody's up in the House of Representatives next year in South Carolina, as well as the House of Representatives, the factors that are in place there's not going to make that much difference in terms of electoral politics because of the kind of institutional control that the sitting legislators have, the way the districts have been drawn, and also name recognition and their ability to raise much more money than any challengers to those positions. So while people are disengaged and not real happy with either the General Assembly or members of Congress at this point, whether that's going to have a real impact next year, I think is doubtful.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, and we see these, and we've heard this too, and we've seen this in media reports, and it's not just in Columbia or Charlotte or Raleigh or Charleston, but we've seen this trend of state legislatures imposing their will on municipalities. And it has harmed a lot of intergovernmental relationships. Is that a real thing, or is that just something is that an anomaly, or is there something else going on here?
Oh, I think that's a real thing. I think that it's certainly in South Carolina there's an attempt to concentrate more control at the state level. When we look at what's going to happen in the General Assembly next year, there is a bill that has not been given a lot of attention, but it's on solid waste control, and the attempt is being made to take away the ability of counties to direct the flow of solid waste, which will be, it's called the Business Freedom of Choice Act, but what it really does is provides more opportunities, more ability for waste companies to determine where the waste goes and to bring in more out-of-state waste, whereas that takes away a lot of the local control. And then when you combine that with, over the past several years, the Local Government Funding Act has not been funded at appropriate levels. They've been cutting into the ability of local governments to actually perform some of their mandated functions. So I think that tension that you mentioned is really there between state and local governments.
Chris, how would you characterize that? Because it's been never more acute than it has in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that there's some activities that appear to be aggressive toward the municipalities.
How much do you think that hurts day-to-day activities of cities to run their area of dominant influence the way they want to, including their elected officials and those that are all in?
I think sometimes, particularly in the infrastructure, is where there's some concern, with the water sewer systems, those kind of things being shifted into authorities. How does that affect bonds, things that were passed? So it just creates a little uncertainty again. Where are we going with a lot of this? But I think in the long run, it'll probably work out.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. We're going to bring our guest on here in just a second. Next week on this program, he is the State Board of Education Chair for the Tar Heel State. Bill Kobe will join us. Obviously a very interesting discussion, not just about the application and the first assessment of the Common Core standards in the state of North Carolina, but also this whole idea of having so many people doing so many things around education. We're going to try to get a sense of where North Carolina is on going in the same direction about that. That's next week here, State Board of Education Chair Bill Kobe. And now, you'd be very hard-pressed to find a mayor who has served more terms in office than our next guest, 10 terms, in fact, beginning in 1975. Add to that his very broad appeal to many in the Holy City and the Low Country, and that his Palmetto State roots. And you have the iconic mayor of Charleston. We welcome to the program. We're glad to, and we're honored to welcome back to the program the Honorable Joe Riley. Mr. Mayor, welcome back to the program. Nice to have you here.
Well, it's great to be back. Thank you for having me. Thanks for putting on such a great show.
Well, thank you, sir. And, there's so many things we want to start with. We'd love to talk to you about transportation, about education, about economic development. But, Mayor, I want to go back to something. In the mid-'70s, when you first got the job as chief executive of Charleston, One of the issues that you really pressed, and it's hard to think of it now, but that whole area just off Market Street in the Market area, you put a stake in the ground and you said, we've got to do something about economic development. We know it now is Charleston Place. It was the Omni, the Charleston Omni for a while, but you really you were the point of the spear of that. So you've kind of been through the war when it comes to economic development. How do you reflect back on what is a tremendous success for downtown Charleston? What did it take to get that done, and how do you apply that to kind of today's intergovernmental and business and community relations?
Well, thank you. It's been a huge success. We had developed a strategic plan, and we knew that that development was important to revitalize our downtown area. And when you're certain that what you're doing is right, then you fight relentlessly for it. And that's what we did. And there were lawsuits, and lots of people, some people said it's going to ruin Charleston and all of that, and a lot of money. We had to get a lot of grants, and we, and went to the Supreme Court a couple of times, and every hurdle. But we knew that it would be the right thing for Charleston, and it's been. And that's in any economic development matter, really any matter in political life or in life in general, business life, if you have worked hard to determine what you're doing is correct, listen to people, work, then you just don't quit, and you have to be determined to win. And that's how we felt about that, or other things we've done in Charleston. You don't take the easy approach, you take the hard approach. You don't think about the next election, you think about the next generation.
In your answer there, sir, I suspect there's a special sauce to how you do it. Clearly, people have said, one of the great things about Mayor Riley is that he loves our city. He loves this community. He grew up here. But when you say you stick-to-itiveness and you don't give up, what is it? What is the special sauce or the secret sauce that? And I'm not, Mayor, I'm not just talking about Charleston Place, but I'm talking about annexing Daniel Island. I'm talking about the digital corridor. I'm talking about all of these things that happened on your watch. What was that thing that you did? Not giving up, but what else did you make sure that you did to make sure that you got these projects where you needed to get them?
Well, you do a lot of things, and you have great people surrounding you, and who are creative and intelligent, and being confident it is the right thing. But that takes study. That's not scratching your head and say, "Oh, this would be a good idea." But also you sell. I mean, people say, "What does a mayor do?" I say, "Well, he's in sales." So all the while, you're communicating with your citizens that you serve why it's important. And what a leader must do is work hard to understand the hearts of his or her people. That is, what, if achieved, you're confident will fulfill them. Even if in the process of getting there might be some doubt among the people, but if you know that when it's done, they will say, "Boy, this is great." And so that's the sauce, is just the felt duty to achieve what you know will make your community successful, and in the long run make the citizens you serve happy. And you just don't quit. And you must always be seeking excellence, and you reject mediocrity, which is, in this day and age, medium is ever present and often tempting, but you reject that. What is the very best thing? And I think that one of the reasons for Charleston's success is, in whatever we've done in land use planning and economic development, and our fabulous success in public safety, is in seeking excellence. And what I tell the people that work with me is, we want this to be the best in America, whatever we're doing. If it's an approach to our 105 neighborhood organizations, or if it's an annexation effort, we seek to be the best.
Chris, question?
Mayor, Charleston has been one of those places that has transformed itself numerous times over the years, probably one of the best examples in the country. Looking at, for examples of the Naval Yard closure and now becoming an aerospace hub of the world, what is next? Can you talk to that?
Well, our phenomenal growth in the knowledge economy, I think that's the next wave. You know, we've all seen the books and talk about the importance of livability, the rise of the creative class, and that creative people are going to first select a really good place to live. And I think all of the investments that we've made in making Charleston a wonderful place to live, to raise your children, a beautiful place, not just to visit. And you never make a community. The goal first isn't to make it a great place for visitors. You make it a great place for locals, and then visitors want to come. But we've worked hard on the knowledge economy. We created the digital corridor, and with a number of initiatives, we've got big new technology companies. You know, Google's in our region, and Benefit Focus, the fastest growing employee services company in the world. Blackboard, the largest nonprofit developer for nonprofits in the world, and then we've got a string of just burgeoning companies, and they're coming. And we one of the new companies that has been developed in Charleston is now a national company. People Matter has coined the term Silicon Harbor, that California has Silicon Valley, Charleston has Silicon Harbor. But I think all of those components are seeing phenomenal growth in the new economy, and so I think that's the next wave that we're already participating in. And obviously Boeing coming to our region with their plant in North Charleston, and they're going to bring some of their IT workforce and engineering workforce to our community for obvious reasons. They want to decentralize those things. I think that's the next wave, is the knowledge economy, jobs coming to our community.
You know, Mayor, just as a quick follow-up on that story, Bob, but let me just jump in here for a second. So you talk about having a much younger demographic around Silicon Harbor, and you talk about all those great companies. So as you're leaning into that, wouldn't it make sense to have a comprehensive research university? Certainly MUSC has done a great job, but how do you get your arms around more of a research university?
Sure, that's a top priority. We're working closely with state legislative leaders and our Chamber of Commerce and community leaders to do just that, and that is to combine the College of Charleston and the Medical University into a Charleston University, a University of Charleston, and we have to have that. We're a major region now, and to have the advanced degree granting programs available is essential, and so that's at the very top of our agenda, and I'm confident that we will achieve that. It's needed and it fits. We're not forcing anything. The demand is there, and the two great institutions, the college, one of the great liberal arts colleges in our country, the Medical University, one of the great medical centers in our country, bringing those two together, and we need it. We need the Medical University needs a PhD program in chemistry, needs a PhD program in physics for obvious reasons. The College of Charleston, PhD granting programs and a host of liberal arts and computer technology. So that's the top of our list. We're working hard on it even as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Bob?
Mr. Mayor, we were having some discussion earlier about what I perceive to be the kind of increasing tensions between state government and local governments, and I would like to get your perspective on that. Given the time that you've been there, do you see that that's something that the tension has been increasing, or is it just a couple of incidents that we've picked off and kind of are top of the head now that make it seem that things have changed?
Well, it's something you just have to continue to work on. The average legislator is a good person, well-meaning and dutiful. In the legislature, they are presented or sometimes bombarded by special interests that make an argument that something needs to be done on a statewide basis that removes prerogatives from local government. And so our job is to work hard with our local legislators to convince them that oftentimes that is wrong. And we all know instinctively that the closer a decision-making process is to the citizens, closest to their home. You know, city council meeting in Charleston, and we're a pretty big city now, it's hard to be more than 10 miles away from City Hall, live, and most people are much closer. You come right there, there are no lobbyists, you don't have to sit up in the gallery, you sit right there at the city council meeting, you walk up to the mic during our citizen participation, make your voice heard. So to keep working with our fine legislative members and convince them that removing decision making from the government closest to them and moving it 110 miles away is not in anyone's best interest. And so oftentimes the special interests aren't corrupt people or anything like that. They've got, you know, an industry or a particular group that wants to achieve something. And frankly, we have to outwork them. We just can't sit back in offices and say, you know, the legislature ought to do this. We got to meet with them one-on-one and lobby them and work it. It takes energy, but that's, you know, that's our job. And we will continue to have those kinds of battles. And but we're, you know, we just have to outwork them. And as I say, we work closely with our legislators, and you can't take them for granted, nor forget that they're getting pressures from, you know, nice people that they have gotten to know in Columbia, and we just got to clearly make our case. Government closest to the people is the best form of government, and moving decisions away to state level from local government goes against home rule, which is in our Constitution, but goes against the common sense that the average citizen recognizes.
Mayor Riley, a couple things around transportation and infrastructure. I know that's never been more acute as it is now in the Lowcountry, but let me back up and say, at the end of last session in the State House in Columbia, many people said they did a good thing. They authorized $500 million in bonds to be used for road construction or infrastructure/transportation. I want to ask you about that. I want to also overlay on top of that there seems to be a majority of South Carolinians who believe that they would stomach, if you will, a gas tax increase to help fund even further expansion. So I ask you, as the mayor of a town who has a loop in it called 526 that needs desperate work, but also as a citizen of South Carolina, and you know better than most about the challenges around the roads and infrastructure. So characterize all of these challenges.
Well, obviously, the state transportation system, our roads and bridges, our highways and interstates, are woefully underfunded. And we need an increase in gas tax. And, you know, citizens, what the citizens want is for you to spend their money wisely. They don't expect something for nothing, and they don't expect magic, and they know that a new bridge or a widened interstate costs a lot of money. And I think the legislature is failing the citizens rather than serving them by refusing to take up the issue of a gas tax increase and making it happen. The citizens would overwhelmingly support it, I'm confident, and they would see in every county in our state and in cities highway improvements that have been long overdue, and we've got a huge deficit of infrastructure in South Carolina, and that costs money. So I hope the legislature will take up the gas tax, and I'm sure if you polled the mayors in South Carolina, I bet 90% of them would support it. And, you know, we raise taxes sometimes at the city level. We cut taxes when we can, but whenever they go up, we make a convincing case to the citizens why that's necessary. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we raised taxes last year, and our taxes rate has been going down to add more police officers, to reinforce our ability to make our schools safe.
Mayor,
build some more fire stations.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you because I asked you a long question with 2 minutes left, and we're out of time. But we want to thank you for not just your service in Charleston, but best of luck going forward. And we will watch
you
it closely.
so much.
Yes, thank you, sir, so much. Bob, good to have you here. Chris, nice to see you again.
You too.
Our special thanks also to Santee Cooper for hosting this connection with us. And until next week, I'm Chris William.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. NOVANT Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care, when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.